Hello everyone, this is Jag. In this video, I'm going to cover 7 tomato planting mistakes to avoid. Now, if you avoid these mistakes, you will be able to grow really big, beautiful tomatoes that taste amazing. Number 1, fertilizing. Now, you might think tomatoes need a lot of fertilizers, but that is not true. If you provide a lot of nitrogen to tomato plants, they will become really big and bushy and grow a lot of foliage, but not enough fruit. So do not fertilize your tomatoes with lots of nitrogen. Always use slow-releasing fertilizers such as cow manure or pelleted chicken manure or feather meal or bone meal. Number 2, sunlight. You must use an area carefully that receives a lot of sunlight. Tomatoes need at least 7 to 8 hours of direct sunlight to grow really big, beautiful tomatoes. Now, there are certain tomatoes that can grow in shade, such as cherry tomatoes. Most cherry tomatoes grow well in shade and they produce a lot of tomatoes. However, to grow heirloom tomatoes, you must plant the tomato plants in an area that receives full sunlight. Number 3, spacing. If you plant tomatoes too close, you'll have a lot of mess on your hands. You'll have lots of plants with lots of foliage and you'll have a bushy mess. You'll have trouble picking tomatoes and your tomatoes will also compete with each other for resources. The optimal spacing for tomato plants is 24 inches to 36 inches apart, which will produce the best tomatoes and the optimal yields. Number 4, planting tomatoes. Now, a lot of people will plant tomatoes just like any other plant, and they will leave a lot of stem above ground and the plants will topple over. You must always plant tomato plants sideways, which is the optimal way of planting tomatoes. This way, all the roots are covered in soil and most of the stem is covered in soil as well. And this stem will produce a lot more roots, which will help in the absorption of more nutrients. Number 5, removing suckers. Now, you don't actually have to remove suckers from tomato plants. However, if you're growing indeterminate tomatoes, it is better to remove suckers from the tomato plant so all the energy goes towards one stem to produce a lot of tomatoes and a lot big tomatoes as well. Suckers are little offshoots that grow between a stem and a branch, and you can just remove the suckers by pinching them off or by cutting them off. However, if you're growing determinate tomatoes, do not remove suckers from those plants because those suckers will produce a lot more flowers and a lot more tomatoes. And determinate tomato varieties grow all the tomatoes all at once. So you don't want to inhibit the plant from growing all of those tomatoes. So always know what kind of variety of tomatoes you're growing, whether it's indeterminate or determinate. I love to grow indeterminate tomatoes, especially cherry tomatoes. I let my cherry tomato plants grow about 6 to 7 shoots, and then after that I pinch off any more suckers that the tomato plant grows. I use the string to keep each of the stem upright, and I have about 6 to 7 shoots on this tomato plants that are staked up. This tomato plant is doing really well. Look at it, it's loaded with tomatoes, and the tomatoes actually come right off the plant. And this tomato plant is doing amazing. I have about 6 to 7 different shoots coming out of this tomato plant and actually hoisted them up onto the stake, and then they just keep climbing up and it just keeps growing. I'm harvesting all of these tomatoes that are on this plant, and let's see how much I get. And I'm harvesting them as they are orange, so by the time I use them they'll turn red. So that's the idea behind it, and this is going to be amazing. Well, check out all of these tomatoes. This is just one harvest from this tomato plant, and I've been getting these many tomatoes every 7 to 10 days. This tomato plant is growing crazy with tomatoes. Check out all these tomatoes. This is absolutely amazing. Number 6, mulching. Now, a lot of people do not mulch their tomato plants. Mulching helps to retain moisture in the soil, and it also helps to prevent weeds from growing. So always mulch your tomato plants because moisture is the key to growing big, beautiful tomatoes and lots of tomatoes as well. Which leads us to number 7, which is watering. The biggest mistake everyone makes in growing tomatoes is overwatering. Now, overwatering makes the tomato plants grow a lot of foliage, and it actually makes the flowers drop from tomato plants, which means less fruit. You must stress your tomato plants to grow a lot of tomatoes. Always provide deep watering to your tomato plants and water less frequently. Make your tomato plants think that they are not going to get enough water, and that will make them produce a lot more tomatoes. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in another video.